Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for your quick briefing on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today we're diving into a major development affecting frontline retail workers. Walgreens has announced that several previously paid holidays will no longer be paid for in-store hourly workers. We'll look at what this means, who's impacted, and how much it could cost these workers. Let's break it down. First, what exactly happened? In November 2025, Walgreens announced that it would eliminate paid holiday status for 6 major holidays for its full-time hourly store employees. These holidays included Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Memorial Day, the 4th of July, and Labor Day. Under the old policy, full-time hourly employees who had worked for the company for at least 6 months and were scheduled for those holiday dates could receive paid time off if they did not work. But under the new policy, workers only get paid for those holidays if they actually work on those days. So if your store is closed or you're off on that holiday, you'll no longer receive holiday pay. The company notified workers in early October of the change, just a few weeks after they were taken over by a private equity firm. And the move is being characterized as part of an aggressive cost-cutting effort under the new ownership. So who's being affected and how much money are we really talking about? Well, the policy change applies to in-store hourly workers at Walgreens. The announcement explicitly states that hourly store workers or hourly employees are impacted. So these are likely to be pharmacy technicians, store associates, maybe even shift leads or hourly supervisors in the retail pharmacy, maybe not necessarily the corporate staff. So in terms of wages, recent data show that hourly pay at Walgreens for many retail roles is still pretty modest. ZipRecruiter data shows the average hourly wage for a Walgreens retail job in the U.S. is about $19.64 an hour. Other sources show average hourly pay for Walgreens employees in the U.S. ranging up to $24 per hour. And for pharmacy tech roles, other data shows about $17 to $22 per hour in some markets. So let's just take an estimate. If an employee earns, say, $20 per hour and works a standard full-time schedule, that would be about $41,000 per year before overtime and benefits. Now remove the paid time off for these 6 major holidays, then the loss in wages for this average employee would be about $1,000. So although it might sound like, just a few $100s, for someone at a $40K income, that drop in income can be meaningful, especially when you factor in rising costs, inflation, other economic pressures. Some of the backstory here that's interesting, Walgreens has been under strain and pressure for some time. The company was historically one of the leading U.S. pharmacy retail chains and it operated thousands of stores. But it has faced major headwinds recently, declining front-of-store retail sales, pressure on pharmacy reimbursement rates from payers, increasing store theft and shrinkage, and rising operating costs. In June 2024, Walgreens announced that a large portion of its U.S. store network was underperforming, and they laid out a multi-year plan for store closures. In August of 2025, Walgreens was acquired by the private equity firm Sycamore Partners. The deal was for about $10 billion in equity value, with an overall enterprise value that could range to $20 billion when factoring some other debts. Following the acquisition, the business has been restructured. The company is now privately held and has been broken into standalone operating businesses, and the new owners are looking to drive value quickly. From private equity theory, we know that cost reduction, headcount reductions, asset sales or spinouts, and margin improvements often form the early playbook. The holiday pay change can be seen as one of many cost cuts targeted at frontline labor. Indeed, media reports show that Walgreens also laid off about 80 corporate employees, closed its Chicago office, and is looking to reduce its fixed cost base. So in totality, what do we have? We have a legacy retailer operating in a difficult environment, now under new private equity ownership, which typically means pressure to improve results, shrink the cost base, and maximize cash flows, sometimes, maybe often, at the expense of labor and long-term investments. So you might be asking, as I did, has senior leadership been impacted at all by these changes and these cuts? Well, the leadership team has been reshuffled. With the acquisition complete, Walgreens named a new CEO in August, replacing the prior CEO who stepped down and continues on as a board director. But we couldn't find any public reporting that any executive compensation was explicitly reduced related to this holiday pay cut or other cost cuts, nor did we locate any major public dismissals of senior leadership tied directly to these labor cost changes beyond that CEO transition we mentioned. So while leadership has changed and the ownership has shifted, there's no clear publicly available indication that senior leaders were punished or impacted at all financially for the poor performance and operating results that preceded all this, at least not in any publicly available media we looked at. So maybe some leaders did take the fall for the declines in Walgreens' performance, but as far as we can tell, it's been the frontline employees who have been the most negatively affected. So it's worth stepping back and saying, well, what does this mean for the workers? These are the folks that keep the Walgreens stores open. They process your prescriptions. They serve the evening and weekend shifts. They help communities with healthcare access and retail needs. Now they're being asked to absorb a fairly direct pay cut, not by reducing their hourly rate, but via removal of paid time off for major holidays as part of a broader cost-cutting exercise. And meanwhile, they face a labor market that's cooling, jobs are less plentiful than before the pandemic, inflation remains high, health insurance costs, I don't need to tell you, continue to rise for everyone. So to tell a worker making $20 an hour that, hey, your paid holiday benefits are gone, you're asking them to carry part of the burden of a strategy in facing macroeconomic headwinds that were not of their making. And it's especially rough when you consider that holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas are not just any days. It's time when many workers would want to or expect to have time off, or at least know that they'll be paid, even if they simply choose to take the day off rather than work. Removing that paid benefit shifts this risk onto employees. Either work the holiday to get paid, or don't work and don't get paid. When under the old system, they would have been paid for the holiday even if they didn't work. And in my view, and maybe from a workplace justice perspective, that's unfair to workers who are already vulnerable, and it reflects a broader trend in which labor takes the hit while ownership and management seek cost savings. And I'd argue that companies, especially those in essential services like pharmacy, that serve their communities should balance cost pressures with fairness to the frontline workers. When owners and executives seem to face little downside and the workers face real income reductions, well, that just leads to inequitable outcomes. So our takeaway, I think, from all this, if you're an HR or business leader, please recognize that even modest cuts to benefits and paid time off policies can have outside morale, productivity, and retention implications. It's not just the dollars that are being lost. It's the message to your workforce about how much you value them. If you're a worker at Walgreens or in a similar retail or healthcare role, you're giving up something real here, and you deserve recognition that the system is shifting under your feet. Thanks so much for listening, and a big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If this episode made you think about how your organization is taking care of your workers on the front line, please share it with a colleague. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.